I was just having a bit of an offload to one of the other housemates on the way in about how coming out of the house is quite overwhelming. So I think the first few days I was out, I was quite sort of dissociated. And now the reality of everything is kind of sinking in a little bit. So I'm okay, I'm good, I'm happy. And just focusing on catching up with friends and family and things like that, really.
Are you glad for the experience?
I'm really grateful. But I'm still processing. So I think when someone asked me this before, I was like, ask me in 6 months, because there's a lot to process. Like my nervous system is still a bit frazzled. I'm really, really grateful. But I think it's been quite overwhelming that some of the storylines that I expected to be storylines were not, because obviously we don't know what's being aired and what isn't. So when I was in the house, I was having a negative experience at times, and I didn't expect to have any positive reception at all. So unbeknown to me, in the outside world, there was a whole population of neurodivergent, queer and neurodivergent people that were behind me. And I was like, wow, like something I said had some kind of meaning or value. So because of that alone, I would say, yes, amazing experience that I really value and I really appreciate. But obviously there was some ups and downs, and anyone who has watched the show will have seen them, because there were times when it was a little bit testing.
Yeah, and you wanted to leave, right? I mean, I've seen the clips of you kind of going, I'm off.
Yeah.
I'm off, see you later.
Yes.
There is something happening with, we've had Amy Spalding on here.
Yeah.
Who I know is a big fan of yours.
Love Amy.
Bradley Riches, also on here. There's something happening where this medium of a reality show for inclusivity, neurodiversity, just becomes this amazing representation and role modeling format. You're a forensic psychologist, and we're going to talk about that. But why do you think that is?
I think there's so much reality TV. And there's a lot of reality TV that's quite similar. And then you have these kind of odd shows that show something a little bit different. One of the thoughts I had going in was, I don't think I've seen people on TV necessarily that are that much like me. There is not that much queer female representation anyway.
Yes.
Queer female neurodivergent representation even smaller. So I was like excited about the fact that there would be this kind of, I guess, silo to have all these different personalities in together. And I think there's some excitement about that, and that's why those TV shows are popular. But I think also people want to see real people and real life, and I think that's why shows like Big Brother has gained such popularity. More popularity than I realised, actually, having seen some of the feedback since I came out. But yeah, I think that's the reason why. It shows something a bit different and a bit unusual, I suppose.
You were incredibly good at dissecting what was going on in the house. And I'm fascinated by this parallel of what is ultimately a big psychological human experiment. How did you see things in there? And how did you balance your professional expertise with your, I guess, your personal experience?
I think it was difficult to balance. For me, I think what actually happened was I went into the house, I was prepared to be overwhelmed, but then I was more overwhelmed than I thought I would be.
Okay.
So there was massive sensory overwhelm as soon as I went in, the lights, the sounds, the huge amounts of people, and the personalities were huge, vibrant, like extroverted people, which is not necessarily my default position. I can be those things, but I have to be in a certain context to be those things.
And that's every day.
Yeah.
That's all the time, right?
Yeah, that was happening all day, every day. And the other housemates were like super bubbly from the minute they woke up to the minute they went to sleep.
How did you regulate?
So I went to my bed.
Okay.
I had earplugs. They gave me a massive box of earplugs before I went in. And if I was feeling overwhelmed, I either went to the garden and found a quiet corner of the garden, or I just went to the bed and just lay down for a bit. But then that was tricky because then people would come and like bounce on the beds next to you and like start talking to you. So I think thinking about the question about being a psychologist, it sort of started to intermingle, because where I felt overwhelmed, I think my drive to understand kicked in. So then my brain was like, like trying to read people, trying to understand what was happening, trying to make sense of interactions that I didn't always feel were very real or very genuine.
Yep.
So I think that's what was happening for me. And I think for me, psychology is something I've hyper-focused on. for a reason over a number of years. And it was almost like it kicked in as a way to manage the other feelings of overwhelm.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yes, makes total sense.
So I'm like scanning my environment, trying to work out what's going on and like who likes me, who doesn't like me, who's a safe person, who isn't a safe person, like how am I going to manage this interaction? And then how am I going to manage my facial expression so I look like I'm friendly? One of the things that I explained to the housemates was that like my face doesn't always represent my thought and feelings. I caveat that slightly with the fact that there are a few facial expressions that I've pulled that are just a bit sassy and a bit like I've obviously clocked something. Those are obviously the parts of my personality coming through. But there were other facial expressions that I've pulled that apparently were a bit spaced out or a bit blank or like a bit distracted. And I was kind of constantly having to say, like, it's just my face. Like, please don't read negative intention to it because it's just my face when it's at rest. And
but do you think that that atmosphere anyway puts everybody on hyper alert?
I think so. I think we all were. I think actually it was a positive experience and all of us are really lucky to have been in there. But I think there were times when we were all like hyper vigilant, hyper alert and actually in like fight or flight mode sometimes. And that's not just me, not just the other neurodivergent housemates, but you know, the other housemates that don't have those diagnoses, I think they felt overwhelmed as well. Like, I think for anyone, it's a lot to throw yourself into. But it would be anyway, living in a small space with 16 people. So
100%. I mean, my idea of absolute hell, personally. So why was it important for you to talk about being ADHD?
So I have a diagnosis of ADHD. And I think I'm on the autistic spectrum, but my autism is not diagnosed.
Okay.
But my brother had autism. My sister has an autism diagnosis. So statistically, the chances are quite high. And actually, I trained to assess autism and then was like, oh, the call is coming from inside the house kind of thing.
No way.
Yeah. And then I was like, I haven't personally pursued a formal diagnosis of ASD, but I do have a formal diagnosis of ADHD because at the time I was looking for kind of maybe some medicinal support or something. So I wanted to talk about ADHD because I clocked quite early that I wasn't necessarily the same as the other housemates and I was feeling a bit strange and a bit alien. And I was also significantly older than a lot of them. They were in their 20s, I'm in my late 30s. So I kind of just wanted to explain myself and explain who I am so that they could hopefully receive me in a more kind of understanding way. Because I was aware when I first went in and I was feeling overwhelmed that I could easily be coming across as rude or a bit uptight. I could feel it in myself. So in saying that, that's not a comment on how they were with me. They were absolutely fine. It was just that I felt awkward. So I was like, by the way.
So you can signal, hey.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to say like, by the way, I have this thing and this is what it looks like in me. So I was like, you know, if I disappear and go off to my bed or whatever, I'm regrouping and I'll be back. Or, you know, if I go a bit quiet, I'm overwhelmed. Or if I'm distracted, like I'm trying to listen to you, I'm trying to pay attention. But I have to give myself like internal cues to do that sometimes because my brain is always doing quite a lot at any one time.
Yes. Were there other neurodivergent people in the house?
Yes, there was. I think there was. So I won't name specific housemates because obviously it's up to them how much they want to talk about whether they're neurodivergent or not. But there was other neurodivergent housemates that did have diagnoses. And then there was other housemates that were almost certainly somewhere on the spectrum. And they talked about it in the house actually as well and speculated. After I said, you know, what my diagnoses were, they were like, oh, that sounds like me, or I've been, you know, waiting to go and get an assessment done.
Okay. Did anyone ask you for an assessment?
No, they didn't actually. Thank God. Would have had to like politely decline that one, especially in that environment. Yeah. But yeah, no, there definitely was. And actually, I think that show attracts neurodivergent people. And I'm not sure exactly why, but it seems to. There's something about the colouring outside the lines, I think, that draws the neurodivergent people towards Big Brother because Big Brother does that quite nicely, actually. Yeah. And there's a lot of negative talk or dialogue about Big Brother, but it does that very well. It colours outside the lines. It shows people from different backgrounds being themselves, whether you like it or you hate it. So, yes, definitely other neurodivergents.
And therefore, like attracts like, as we know.
Yes.
And so, it's not a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's going to snowball.
Yeah. And I had conversations with the other housemates about how we were going to cope in the house and how we were going to manage, how we were going to like give ourselves moments of low stimulus in order to cope and stuff like that. So it was a challenge in there, but actually the more openly neurodivergent people kind of gravitated together, I think.
Yeah. Strength in numbers.
Yeah.